Okay, so like, imagine you're at a party, right? And there's that one person that just seemed to like own the room, you know?
Yeah.
Funny, effortless, flitting between conversations. But what if, and this is where it gets interesting, what if this social butterfly is actually autistic?
Yeah.
Like putting in a ton of effort to appear that way. That's what we're diving into this week, I'm asking. Our sources really get into it.
Yeah, it's something that a lot of people misunderstand, you know? I mean, most people have heard of masking in general.
Right, adapting to kind of blend in.
Exactly. And it's super common, especially for autistic people. But there's a big difference between like masking sometimes and what we call high masking. That's when it's practically constant. And it's important to remember it's not about being fake on purpose. It's more like adapting to a world that can feel really demanding socially.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So with this high masking, why do we mistake it for just being naturally good at socializing? I can totally see how, from the outside, it would look that way.
Well, think about it on the surface. Someone who's doing this high masking, they seem socially skilled. Eye contact, good conversation. Maybe they're even cracking jokes.
Right, totally.
But the key difference is that they're mimicking. They're not always actually understanding the deeper levels of what's going on socially.
So it's almost like they've learned a script versus being able to just improvise in the conversation, you know?
You got it. High masking is often about those learned scripts and picking up on those surface level cues, but they might be missing the unspoken stuff, those subtle social rules.
Wow, I never thought of it like that.
Yeah.
Learning a script versus improv, that really makes it click. But then you start to think about how tough it must be to keep that up, you know?
Oh, it can be seriously draining. Like one of the sources even described it as
Yeah.
constantly translating a language you're not actually fluent in. You know, you can get by, but it takes so much work.
Right, it's got to be exhausting. So let's talk about that cost, the impact of high masking. What's it actually doing to people?
Well, picture this. You're constantly watching yourself. Every word, every facial expression, even just how you're standing. And you're adjusting all of it constantly to fit in.
Oh, yeah.
It's a ton of emotional energy. So it's no surprise that people who are high masking, they often have a lot of anxiety, self-doubt too, and this feeling of like nobody really gets them.
And one source even used the word fatigue.
Yeah.
Is it like normal being tired fatigue, or is it something else?
Oh, it's different. It's definitely not just being tired. We're talking about burnout, emotional burnout. It's like carrying this invisible weight around all the time, that constant pressure to perform. And it gets heavy. It really affects people's mental health, their relationships, even just how they see themselves.
Makes you realize how much we take for granted just being ourselves around other people. And this isn't just an autism thing, right? That pressure to fit in, to meet these social expectations,
Yeah.
we all feel it.
Yeah, totally. It's a human thing for sure. And that's what's so important about talking about this. It makes us question this idea that there's only one right way to be social.
I'm starting to see that. Like, by getting high masking, we're actually getting social interaction itself in a weird way.
Right. When we start to understand just how different everyone's experiences really are, how different people experience and navigate the social world, it creates more empathy, more understanding.
It also makes you think about how many people are out there masking in different ways, not just autistic people, just to deal with those expectations we all think are normal.
And especially for people on the spectrum who are masking.
Yeah.
This is huge for them because it tells them what you're going through. It's real, even if other people don't see it.
So then, how do we actually do something with this? One of the sources talked about the need for understanding and support. But what does that actually look like day to day?
It starts with believing people, honestly. When someone says they're autistic, when they share their experience, believe them and realize someone who seems fine on the outside, they might be struggling like crazy underneath.
It's about really listening, right? Not just hearing the words, but actually trying to get what they're going through.
100%. And beyond just listening, it's about making space for people to take those masks off, to just be themselves without worrying about being judged or whatever social rules they think they're breaking.
Yeah, totally. Like being able to say, hey, this is hard for me right now, without having to pretend everything's cool.
Exactly. And another part of that whole support thing, it's on us too. We've got to check our own biases because it's easy, right?
Yeah.
You see someone struggling socially, you kind of jump to conclusions like, oh, they're being rude or whatever, but we don't know what's really going on.
Right, like that saying, everyone's fighting a battle you know nothing about.
Exactly. A little compassion goes a long way. Give people the benefit of the doubt.
So where do we even go from here?
Yeah.
As listeners, how do we take this high masking thing and actually make it useful in our lives?
Honestly, start with awareness. The more we get neurodiversity, the more we understand what it's like for people who experience the world differently, the better we can be at supporting them.
It's all about education, right? The more we know, the less we judge. Then we can actually build a world that's better for everyone.
And being willing to have those tough conversations too, with ourselves and other people. Challenge those assumptions we make, ask questions, learn from the people who actually live this stuff every day.
Because it's not just about making things easier for the people who are different. It's about all of us, right? Like embracing all those different experiences actually makes life richer for everybody.
Absolutely. When we let people be themselves, no judgment, everybody wins.
This whole deep dive has been pretty eye-opening, I gotta say. Given me a lot to think about, both for myself and how I can, be better to the people around me.
I'm glad to hear that. And remember, we're just scratching the surface here. There's so much more out there about autism, about masking, tons of personal stories that can really teach us a lot.
So as we wrap this up, any last thoughts for our listeners?
Sure.
Something for them to kind of chew on?
Here's a question. How can we, each of us, in our own way, fight that idea that there's only one right way to be social? How can we make more room for people to be real, to understand each other better, and to just accept each other?
That's a good one. Definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, everyone. And until next time, stay curious and keep those hearts open.